Hi, everyone. This is the SEBA call for Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. We have two items on the agenda. One is talking about there's a transition that's going to happen to the Helm charts that's going to change the format that images are specified with. This is for a couple of reasons, primarily to help with the offline installation and also to make specifying a registry more easy. And then the other thing we wanted to discuss is we were going to look over Jira. We've decided that the next release is going to be December, or the next target is going to be December. This is sort of floating out there before the SEBA 1.0 release and also before ONF Connect. So are there any other topics that people would like to discuss in addition to those two? Okay. I'll start with the first item, which was changing the way that images are specified in the Helm charts. Previously, I'll give an example here. You would specify the entire image name and the tag all in one variable. We split this out and used a more Helm-like split into having the tag separate, the repository separate, and the pull policy per image type. This is closer to the way that Helm does it upstream, and it lets us do things like set the registry globally and have it apply to all images that are used in a chart. So if you have a local values file that uses the old variable names, you would need to update your values file to match the new ones. There's an email that was sent to the SEBA dev list. This change is going to go in tomorrow, probably around middle of the day. And if you have trouble with change, then we can help. So ask on the dev list or ask on Slack, and we can get those problems resolved. That's the first item. The second item was setting priorities in Jira for December. We went through and looked at the September list. We drained everything out of there that was in the backlog. We either moved things into issues without versions or we moved it into December. So the December target has about 40 items. Of those, 15 are in progress. So a lot of these are in some state of being completed. And there are only 10 items that are unassigned. So we actually are pretty good in terms of how much we've sort of bitten off for the next roughly 2-month period. What we kind of wanted to do at this meeting, because almost everything here is a medium priority, we wanted to go through and look at the items and see if anything should be a higher priority or a lower priority for this next release or this next set of work. So we can go through one by one. I think that would probably make the most sense as a way to start. A lot of things I think are going, because we have enough people who are working on things externally. For example, I know that Prakash and Jason are working on this SEBA 273, which is to implement some redfish support. This is probably an item that, in terms of priority, it leans on two people who are working pretty much exclusively on that. We don't need to change the priority on. But a few of the other items that are assigned, either unassigned or are assigned to people who have multiple conflicting or multiple priority items, we should probably set the priority on them. Was there a comment?
No.
Okay. Alrighty.
Just make it
Yeah, I'm glad everyone's out there. I kind of been talking for a while. So if we look through this, we have a few epics that are set for this. It looks like, for example, Don's abstract OLT items is. I think all of these are either in progress or are isolated to him as a developer. So I think that he can handle the setting the priority on those. Northbound interaction. There's one item that is Mateo's, and I think both of these are Mateo's items that are related to basically cleanups of the of how the UI works and some of the interface with the northbound. FCAP's capabilities, we haven't. I think these are to Scott and Mateo. I think 283 is pretty close to being done. Is that correct, Mateo?
So let's say it's all done. The gRPC API are now reporting statistics. I wanted to add some statistics also in the synchronizer framework, so we know how many runs we do, what is the average time per run, the success rate, and that kind of stuff.
Okay, and that's I think you have a patch in flight here, correct?
Yeah. Actually, the gRPC instrumentation has been merged yesterday.
Okay.
So next, everyone deploys should see statistics in Prometheus and Grafana. I haven't started yet on the other one.
Okay.
I think I have some tasks for that.
Okay. And I think Scott has been working on this ONU statistics, although I think you're waiting on something in Volta. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, so, well, partially. So Michael Zadig is working on adding the ONU statistics to the Broadcom ONU. So once that's in, I'll look at propagating those up to Prometheus. At the same time, I'm also looking into adding ONU statistics to PonSim, so that we'll have that capability for SEBA in a box. And also as part of that effort, maybe it will assist us in some of the integration of the statistics from the real ONUs.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
But what about the OLT side? I think the OLT side also. So all the stuff from the OLT side will also flow into this mechanism, right?
So we are already collecting information from the OLT side, from the NI port and the PON ports.
Okay, so basically the mechanism you just put it in. So whenever OLT enable additional information, it will just automatically flow over.
Yeah, so Chip defined a pretty good format that can contain a lot of information. So as long as the OLT adapters use Chip's library to publish whatever statistics they want, it will be automatically propagated to Prometheus.
Okay, I'll find out on this one because Chip, I thought maybe only focus on the ONU side, not on the OLT side. So
yeah, it's ONU and OLTs.
Both? Okay.
I think in this regard, this is probably more OpenOLT driver propagating up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I know Mike, who's here, has done some work with that as well on the OLT side, at least with regards to OpenOLT.
Okay, thanks everyone. We move on. FCAPs for Volta. There's an item here that's pod management. I think this is a pretty wide, pretty wide spanning item. Some of these things, like the monitor common hardware resources, this probably has overlap with that 273, the Redfish support. And
yeah, I dragged this one over earlier. Yeah, there's a lot here. I think the ones that I kind of zoomed in on were lifecycle management of software components, which kind of gets back to Helm charts and things like that. That was really kind of where my head was at with this one.
Is this an epic? This should be an epic and just broke down into actual.
Right.
Or is it?
This is not an epic, but we can change it into an epic if that would be more. If that would be.
Yeah. So then you could have atomic work units.
You could almost turn each one of those bullets into a story.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Okay, so I raised this up to being an epic, and so we can assign stories into it as need be. Alrighty, so moving on then, if people can add items to that, I know we have another epic that's on doing service upgrades and synchronizer upgrades that Scott and I have been working on. So we'll look at that too. The next item was FCAPS for ONOS, the DHCP relay. This is getting statistics from the DHCP relay app in ONOS. I think this is getting this up to either the NEM layer or into Kafka. Is that correct?
Well, I'm a little surprised. I wasn't actually the one who dragged it over to December. If this is a priority for December, I don't see why we should just talk about DHCP relay. I'm sure we would want similar statistics from 802.1x. We would want other things, like radius. I don't know. It's okay to leave it.
This one seems kind of like, I guess, I know there's the command line command in ONOS to kind of, what leases have been relayed. I mean, to me, that seems good enough if it just gets propagated north. But yeah, I didn't particularly put this one in. I guess really what the question is, what more specifically is needed?
So NEM today already displays the status of where your DHCP for a particular subscriber if an IP address has been assigned. So it already displays that. It probably does not display what state is it in. Does it?
It doesn't display, but in Kibana we have the full history of all the events for each subscriber.
Okay. So in addition to that, just statistics like how many times I've seen things, or is that the point behind this one?
Maybe. I guess I'm trying to get to is like if nobody really is looking for it and what's there is good enough, we could defer a little bit further out. Given what's there, there's a way to get to it. Is I guess my point.
Maybe it was on the September, now moved to.
I would leave it in there and just change the priority to be lower, just because it's a good to have, but not completely essential.
Okay, I lower the priority to low, and we'll go with that. We don't have any items in these. 27 and 131, I think this is what we just moved. This is the one we just raised to an epic, and 131 I think is the SEBA upgrading services and thing. I'll fix those so that they don't say unlabeled. 802.1x authentication. Test authentication over 4093 VLAN using gateway VM. This isn't currently assigned one.
Yeah, I dragged that one over earlier. I kind of rolled this up under the standalone installation using the gateway VM to get to all northbound functionality. But yeah, I consider this part of that effort. I don't know if there's an epic for it.
Okay.
I may create one.
Yeah, let's put that down to make an epic for the. Do we want to call it air-gapped install or?
Yeah, that's fine. Air-gapped install is probably a good epic.
Okay, so I already have an air-gapped pod epic, so I'm going to actually drag that into this and move that over.
Perfect.
This is about testing, right?
Well, this is not quite the same as air-gapped, is it? Air-gapped is about installation. This is about operating the pod at runtime using only the gateway VM as the means to get outside the pod.
Yeah, I mean, I guess once it's installed, and running, there will never be a time when there is any other connectivity anywhere else. So, yeah, I mean, the testing of it or not is, you know, we could argue where it needs to be, but ultimately the work that gets done with air gap is going to be creating that VM, connecting to the one network that we can on VLAN 4093 for everything, and that'll be for the life of the pod.
Okay, fair enough. So.
Okay, I'm going to leave it in the air gap pod. If we need to change that or move it, we can. The other 802.1x story was the Kafka not only initializing the Kafka producer. I think, Andy, you have a patch for this. But
yeah, I have a patch. It's just waiting for reviews, but I've tested it quite a lot, and I believe that it fixes the issue.
And what does it do? It just rereads the config?
Yeah, if the config gets loaded before the app, then the app was not picking up the config. So this just rereads the config when the app is initialized.
Okay. Alrighty.
My question is giving the +2. I'd take a look of the GitHub.
+2 for what?
For this patch.
This is for the Kafka app in ONOS, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think I've seen this before too. On a resource constrained setup, I've seen this happen from time to time.
Yeah, so this is what, a one-liner
Yeah.
to configure this? Okay.
There.
And everybody thinks it's great, so
I've been usually clustering changes in AAA, 802. AAA and DHCP relay and the OLT app. I have not looked at the Kafka app, so I can take a look, or someone else can also +2 it from the NEM team.
Yeah, that would be great. I think I just wanted somebody who's, you know, I'm not really an ONOS developer, so if somebody who's more familiar with like best practices in ONOS could take a look and see if this looks good.
That's fine. I'll take a look.
Great, thanks.
okay. The next two items don't have anything, or they're all completed. XSwitch Q and Q priority bits on the BNG uplink port. Nobody has picked this up.
You can assign that to me as a.
Okay. And is this a high-low priority item? Should I leave it at medium?
Medium is fine.
Okay. Lag and LACP on XSwitch BNG port. These are mostly Charles, and I think most of them are in progress, or
at least one of them is in progress. So
okay.
Yeah, these are all required for December, I think. So
okay.
We should just do it as it is.
Okay, that sounds good. We finished the ONOS consolidation. I'm going to go through, and some of these I'm going to mark as done because we already we finished doing them. ONOS clustering.
So again, I'm a little surprised to move this in. Is this a requirement for December?
So I guess we haven't really talked about what our high availability target is, if there is one for the December release. Do we want to be able to? I mean, ideally we can shoot a node, and our node can go down in the 3-node cluster that makes up a pod, and Kubernetes should be smart enough to figure out how to make that work, which in some cases.
So to answer your question, though, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if it was available, but I don't know that we would consider it MVP.
Yeah, I do know as long as Kubernetes brings it back and it works, that's doable. That's as much as we've been doing so far. And there was some requirement I remember reading somewhere that said as long as it's within 15 minutes, which I think that's pretty doable without full HA clustering.
So as now, if you shut down ONOS and Kubernetes bring it back, NEM will notice it and reprovision everything it needs to be in the system. We made some tests, and the subscriber traffic, if ONOS goes down, doesn't work for like 30 seconds, and then it starts working again.
30 seconds?
But really, the only one that would notice that would be the XOS, the synchronizers, right?
That notice that Onos goes down.
Well, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, northbound provisioning.
So I mean,
or
it's just
a window of
activation, provisioning.
Right, northbound provisioning. So in that window,
Right.
if somebody tries to provision something new, then you'll see it. But
But-
traffic never stops flowing.
But generally speaking, I mean, that's
so if someone tries
15 minutes wouldn't make a big difference there.
So you say the data path, if I'm doing the data path do not interrupt, or you
No,
will
the data path does not
Right.
interrupt. I know
Right.
that for certain. I've brought down everything, and as long as the chip is still has power, it'll still pass traffic.
Yeah. That's,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't want to go for a long time because provisioning events wouldn't be able to complete.
Right.
But
Yeah, short of restarting val is the only time either restarting val or something northbound does something like remove an OLT.
right.
But yeah, this
Or
is
you
all.
tell it to quit.
Or you tell it to quit, right?
the data path will actually go down for a few seconds when you restart the components, because as Onos comes back up, it will clean the flows. Because
Yes, that's true. Yes, I've seen that. So on the way back up, there's a true up and there's a moment of
Yeah.
blinking.
But whether that's 15 minutes in the future or an hour in the future, that's
Yeah.
just a blink.
Yeah, and you're probably going to still spend the 2 or 3 seconds there, regardless of 3 ONOSes or 1, right?
No,
I guess I'm not familiar enough with ONOS HA to know, but
Yeah. Well,
it's still within tolerance, I think.
if you have
Yeah,
ONOS in a cluster, you should not see this break even at all, unless the entire cluster goes down and you bring up the entire cluster all over again.
But
Right?
what does it, when the app is not in a supported cluster, but ONOS support cluster, what does it mean?
No, you don't do that. If you do ONOS in a cluster, you have to have the app in a cluster as well.
yeah. That's
Right. So and so some of this is familiarity with ONOS clustering, but I think for what we have now, it's not crucial. We have a way around it as long as Kubernetes does its job, brings it back, and as long as the rest of the system corrects itself within some short amount of time, seconds, then we're okay for now.
So
For December, maybe we can defer that,
Well,
or
we can either move it out or we can change the priority to low.
I would change the
That's
priority
fine.
to
Yeah,
low.
that's fine. That's fine.
okay, so I'm changing the priority to low. I think there's a few issues that we can split apart here. One is having some sort of. I think we probably need to test that and figure out the timing on if ONOS dies or a node dies that ONOS is running on. What the recovery scenario is, and making sure that we have the Helm charts and Kubernetes configured properly. And that might be as simple as just manually testing it periodically, putting it.
I think we already done that. And
Okay.
both the Foundry has done it and we at ONF, Menlo have done this.
Okay.
And our conclusion is that when ONOS goes down, traffic is fine. Traffic just gets forwarded just fine. It's just that when you bring it back up, you might lose it for a few seconds in the data plane.
Right.
But then it recovers in seconds.
I guess my question is whether Kubernetes is actively doing this, and we have a test where one of the nodes in the pod dies that happens to be running ONOS, and how quickly Kubernetes recovers from that.
Yeah, that scenario right there is an interesting one where Kubernetes itself by default won't consider a node down for quite a few minutes, I would say. There's some default that says don't consider it down because you don't want to reshuffle all the pods unless you absolutely have to. So you could consider that one something that's more than just ONOS. I'd say any of the nodes, if lost in any pods that are on there, there's some time period of recovery. So it might be worth checking that in general more than just ONOS.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to get at. We should probably write a ticket for that and maybe pass it off to QA.
Okay.
So just to be clear, so this scenario is ONOS is running on multiple nodes and one of those nodes goes down and restarts, but the one that is actually actively managing the cluster is still okay, right? It's only if the actively managed instance of ONOS goes down that potentially you may lose data for a few seconds, or is that a different scenario?
So Sean, I'm confused if you're asking about what it is today or what this story that is highlighted is about.
So the use of ONOS clustering. So basically, that is basically an HA scenario, right?
Yes, and it's not what we have today. It's for the future.
Yeah. Okay. So what we have today, basically, if it goes down and it comes back up again, we're saying the data path goes down for a few seconds as it recovers, basically.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll work on making that other topic just so that we at least know how to parameterize and tell people how to configure their Kubernetes so that things will change within the required time periods. Moving on, scale testing with BBSim. These are both in progress. I've been working with Keita to get these, get the BBSim container set up and get it integrated with the rest of our pod setup.
What's the status on the Helm chart for BBSim?
It currently works and brings it up. I could not get Volta to talk to BBSim, and Keita has a very large refactoring patch that he's trying to get through that implements, I think, these two features, 150 and 153 DHCP and 802.1x, but I think that's going to change depending on the network model. And so I actually was going to bug Andy about how we want to set up networking in Kubernetes versus Docker, because it works slightly differently in Kubernetes. We're getting there. The BBSim just got a bunch of patches to make it run through a QA pipeline, and those are finding errors too. So hopefully in the next couple of days we'll have a better idea of the status of BBSim as a deployable container.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a look at the networking with you. I think PonSim also, has to jump through some networking hoops, and so hopefully that'll be a good example.
Right. Okay. Logging. These two items are mine. One is logging, having the ONOS logs go to Elasticstack. I've been working on that on and off for a little while, and then getting the Volta logs to Elasticstack. The ONOS logs are probably going to be simpler. Volta, we may need to change some things about how Volta internally logs, but I haven't really jumped on that yet. I'm currently prioritizing making ONOS log as a higher priority than the Volta logs. Does that seem correct to people? I'll go with silence is consent there. So is agreement. SEBA Kubernetes infrastructure. This is also an issue. Right now, we're wiping out the charts every time we update the Helm charts repo. I need to change that to retain the older versions of charts. I was waiting on that other patch we discussed about using the container versioning before I did this.
Yeah, I dragged this one over earlier. This one also, not only this and the patch you mentioned earlier, but also kind of pinning down any other Docker images that aren't versioned. I know when I run a pod, there are maybe 3 or 4 XOS Docker images that are still master, even though I've tagged everything I know I can tag, or grabbed an image for what I know is tagged. So it's almost like a whole view of, the 2 or 3 additional ones and the version numbers, and additionally a chart repository and their version numbers all together. I consider this kind of part of the air-gapped install as well. Right.
I've been in the other patch I mentioned, we are holding to a set app version, and that actually is being set in the sort of Kubernetes recommended way, which is to specify the app version in the chart. So
So this should take care of it.
This should take care of it, and then you can override the app version on a per container basis if you had a locally compiled version.
Okay. All right. Well, good deal then. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on from there, ISSU and pod maintenance. Backup and restore of NEM database. This is basically making a container that runs PG dump and PG restore for XOS. I haven't gone to this, but I don't think it'll be hard.
Yep. This is another one of mine as well, where I, some kind of recovery from a catastrophic, rebuild the pod kind of failure.
Right. Was there interest in exfiltrating this out of the pod and sending it to an upstream system, or is it okay if it lives on one or multiple nodes of the pod?
I think for now, one or multiple nodes is fine. If we're going to do anything northbound, we'll have to find a northbound to put it, and who knows? There could be any number of places where that could be. So for now, just keeping it simple, just knowing that it's on the disk somewhere on these nodes is good enough, or at least a good starting point.
Okay. 178 was data metal migrations for renamed fields. Mateo, did you move this one over?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, this sounds like it belongs as part of the database migration stuff, so I don't know where this one came from.
I may have, when I dragged it over, I may have dragged the epic. So yeah, if it's there, and it shouldn't be, it was the first one that's the one that caught my attention. That one right there is not so much.
I'm quite sure 131 is the data model migration one, so I'm going to add it to that when I refix those. Okay. Our next thing was Redfish and Volt. I already talked about this, which is 273, which is...
Zach, I just moved over a couple of tasks I had to automation of tests. I'm not sure why I did an update on your end.
Yeah, I have to reload for it to...
Okay, yeah, sorry. So a couple of tasks here. There are some maintenance tasks that I need to do in terms of testing the exhaust Tosca container. We don't have an end-to-end verified job for that, so I've just created one right now. It's sitting in review, as well as some API tests to test the synchronizer framework. That ties in with, I'm going to start leveraging the simple example service as well as the test service that Scott has created to further test the exhaust synchronizer. So that's also in progress. I'm just working out a couple of the tests out for that. And then SEBA 275 Volta integration testing with SEBA in a box. So the North Forge guys have written some Volta specific testing, and what I saw that they're doing right now, they're bringing in Volta with Docker Compose and just doing some basic CLI testing with that, like to make sure that the ONU ports are discovered and novelty ports, and just very basic Volta level testing. And so they're gonna start. Their goal is to build and deploy a custom Volta image in a SEBA in a box environment that Andy has created. So my goal here with this task is to expand that testing to not just do the Volta CLI testing. Volta testing itself will still run that, but to expand it so that we can get some end-to-end testing from SEBA in a box, which we currently do have. And I have written some tests for SEBA in a box end-to-end testing. So if we can get that run in a CI job with a custom Volta image. So the idea is per a Volta code check-in, we can deploy that, build that custom Volta image, and then deploy it with SEBA in a box and do some Volta testing as well as SEBA end-to-end testing. So I'm in communication with the North Forge guys, and they're currently still experimenting on getting a custom Volta image built and deployed in a SEBA in a box environment. So once they have some more progress on that, I'll jump in and I'll work with them to create a job, a CA job, to get that testing going. And then also one more task here, expand SEBA in box testing. So that's probably going to be an ongoing tasks, which, as more functionality and more cases come up in SEBA, we'll get those tests added to the SEBA in a box end-to-end test job that we have.
Okay, thanks, Kailash. Okay, and we already went over 273, which is the redfish.
Just, is it recorded, or what was the conclusion on SEBA 273? Oh, sorry, 237 it was. Okay, sorry.
So yeah, I think Jason was going to write a proposal for how that would work. And if you want to talk to, I know that we have an email going back and forth, Prakash. So if let's keep adding stuff to this ticket and see. I'm sort of waiting on Jason's proposal, and then we can go from there. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
Okay. NEM capabilities, backup and restore of pod components. I think that this looks like it's a overlap with the database backup. So I guess I'll relate these two and add and maybe add this or mark this as dupe.
Yeah, this is another one I grabbed in the kind of same theme of recoverability, but yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's created Paul with AT&T?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a number of such stories actually created.
Right.
A lot of them are in the issues without epics. We might revisit some of those later because these are good sort of operational insights into stories.
Okay. Let's look at that once we get to the end of this.
Yeah.
Air gap pod. We already talked about the 4093 VLAN. Issues with.
We could have more added to it. The air gap pod. At some point when we sit down and start, talking through and looking at it, we'll probably add some more stories under here as well.
Okay. Issues without epics. This is some bugs, which are the XOS freeze and the ONU deletion and navigation. I think these are mainly GUI related things.
Can we find a home for these? I mean, in terms of epics.
Historically, we've had a maintenance epic where we've it's been the default location for bugs. I think I'll recreate one that's specific for the December release.
It's coming to that.
Are a few of these other ones, like the radius accounting server and reporting status within NEM, I think these might be have some overlap, 37 and 287.
Yeah, it's almost like
relates to length set.
287 is almost a subtask of 37. 37 itself is very big, has a bunch of things, but 287 is like a subtask. And you can put them in the epic that says FCAPS from ONOS.
Okay, I'll move them over there. ONOS apps in the AT&T profile. Some maintenance.
Just clean up. These are just some things that have been there from the previous profile that we were working on and just never got removed.
Okay. ONOS port stats into Kafka. Is this more FCAPS from ONOS?
Yeah.
Okay. ONU events to use the same format as auth events and GCP events. These are all out of ONOS, correct?
Mateo?
Yeah, that needs to be done both in ONOS and in NEM.
Okay. Should I move this into FCAPS from ONOS, or is it across?
Well, this is more a cleanup task. So everything is working as it is. I just realized that we are using two different formats for the events for basically no reason. So if we can unify them, we'll get a better experience in the tracing.
Yeah,
we have a consistent.
But you can move it to the same epic because it's essentially coming from ONOS. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move that over there. And the rest of these things I'm going to move into a maintenance epic. 289 is related to, I think Scott is working on this. This is, I I think mainly for the abstract OLT work or related to it, to let them use a gRPC connection versus the Tosca connection. Or
yeah, so did we have an epic that was for northbound APIs? Because maybe this could be moved to that epic.
Northbound interaction, which had some other cleanup stuff in it. Well, I'll move it into there. Okay, and the rest of these will go into the maintenance epic. I'm going to switch over to issues without versions. So we have 60 items in here. Some of these are, we could go over the entire backlog, but I'm not, do we want to try and look at that right now, or do we want to wait for people to move things out into December?
Right, so what I'd suggest is that we already spent the last week looking at things that we could move into December, and what is left over is what you're seeing now, issues without versions. And if anyone, I mean, let's keep it open for the community, but if anyone wants to move something into December, first please send out an email on the SEBA mailing list saying, why we're moving this into December and who is assigned to it, and just make sure that it falls under some epic. Most of them do, some of them don't, but most of them are unassigned. Okay, so if you're moving it into December, please make sure that there is somebody assigned to that task. Is that fair?
I think that's reasonable. And
yep. I like it.
And some of them more like epic, right? So potentially maybe they can
be broken down.
Yeah,
it's possible. But the thing is, we have a fair number of stories already in December, and so if you look at this list and you feel that something strongly, you really feel strongly something belongs in December, make sure someone's assigned to it, and then just send out that email on the SEBA mailing list saying that you're moving things into December.
And BYOR. Bring your own resource.
No, assign it all to me.
Okay. I think that wraps this up. Is there anything else we wanted to discuss for this meeting, or did somebody wanted to talk about at next meeting?
Hi, this is Tina Jo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I work for ARM, and I'm also the Acreno TSC co-chair. So I noticed that the SEBA will submit a blueprint to Acreno. Is that correct understanding?
I think the discussion, there was a talk of making a SEBA blueprint for Acreno. I'm not sure who was going to be doing that work. Do we know?
Is Larry online?
I think Larry's supposed to be in Menlo this week. Maybe he's in another meeting.
I think he's in a meeting with Guru.
Okay.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Larry Peterson is the right person to talk to. You can reach him over email, or maybe even the SEBA mailing list to talk about the blueprint for Acreno.
And Tina, there's an AT&T internal discussion on the blueprint.
Is that right? Okay.
Wait, is it internal? Okay, it's already written into the. It's already on the wiki in the slides of technical community document as an example.
You mean in the Acreno's technical?
Yes. In the Acreno technical community document as an example.
I have not checked that website wiki, so I'm not sure. What I'm stating is AT&T internal, we have some discussion regarding to some kind of park activity. But whether that's official in the wiki or not, I'm not sure.
It's on the wiki. It's on the wiki. I can show you the wiki right now.
It's already on the wiki. Okay.
Yeah. It's just say under the blueprints, it says SEBA blueprint and Edge X Fungi blueprint. They are in parallel to each other.
Matt, are you aware about that?
Vaguely. I know we've talked about at a high level kind of what it would take to do that. I haven't personally produced anything. I know that there's been talk about.
I'm not saying the blueprint is printed. It's within the Equino technical community document. There is a figure showing the relationship with the blueprints and upstream and the other C code, blah, blah, and SEBA says SEBA blueprint is one example in the figure. That's why I'm asking. I'm just telling you after next Thursday when we vote for the technical community document, community is free to submit a new blueprint for the consideration of the community and the TSC approval. So I'm just bringing this message to yourself. After next Thursday, if you guys want to do the work, you can start.
What exactly does a blueprint entail? Is it just a planning document, or is there code? Or I guess I'm not. I looked at some of the Crano documentation probably a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't clear to me what exactly constitutes a blueprint.
Okay, so the Equino technical community document describes the answers to your question.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe I should give you the link. That will be easier.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Yeah. Let me find out where it is. Sorry, the background noise.
Prakash, I wanted to go back to the old previous meetings. We were talking about the update on the SEBA, what do you call, pod details. Dell had requested me to look at that and ensure that it's included in the pod definitions of what we need to put or something. So Larry was there. I think Larry is not on the call today, but is it going to be taken up sometime before December?
I didn't quite catch that at the end, Prakash.
So,
is there?
So there is an online website which describes the pod requirements. So if that pod requirement right now contains the QCT or whatever that vendor name, but Dell folks wanted me to find out how we get that updated for Dell.
So
pods. Yeah, we can give you a bomb which we can put in, but we need to know where to put it.
Right.
How do we go about it? That's the question.
I think that historically how that's worked is there's been some interaction between QA and getting hardware approved and tested. It may be that we just need to have a set of the equipment you're recommending as a bomb set up somewhere, and then have some sort of testing that happens on an ongoing basis on it.
So which tests we have to run? The functional tests on ONOS? Where is the test which we need to run to prove?
Yeah. Historically, I think Luca has been the one who's usually taken lead on this. But I know
yes,
that
I would recommend that you reach out to Luca for updating the bond page, and he might have some requirements. Typically what we do is that if we have equipment that works with a certain release, that's when we put it on the BOM. And I think we'll just continue to do it that way. So if you reach out to Luca, he should be able to help you out with that.
Yeah, okay. So either the September or December release, we have to test it out on our pod before we can
The September and December aren't releases. They're mostly tags. When we do an official release, it'll very likely be in December. Also, that December one will very likely be a official one, but it hasn't been decided yet. But that's when we'll update the documentation, we'll update the BOM, and so on.
So at this time, I can do with September. Whatever we have in September, can I test with that? Is that the recommendation?
Yeah.
Lucas, I have to talk.
Yes, we can test with that. What's currently on master is probably an extension of September, and the master documentation is not tied to a specific release. It's whatever's currently under development. It would also be useful to have that hardware accessible. Historically, we've had our partners have had a VPN set up and had a pod, like in their data center, and then we could also use that as a way to test the statistics out of Redfish on your specific hardware.
Sure. If we want to enable that, yeah, we'll do it.
Okay. Tina, did you have that link? Oh, there we go. I'm gonna bring that up. So it's the cranial technical community. I'll just leave a link to this in our call agenda. And then I would still recommend that you talk to Larry about the actual process of making a blueprint.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Tina.
No problem.
Okay. Are there any other topics? Okay, then it's almost the top of the hour. I'm going to call a meeting. Thank you, Errol. And I'll talk to everyone next week.
See you. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye for now.